Mr. Pearl, people have been talking about this today as an act of war. Is that how you see it?
Clearly it's an act of war, both in terms of its magnitude and its purpose. Behind these acts of terror are the states that support terrorism, the states that provide the recruitment, the organization, the sanctuary, the planning, the training, the logistics, the money. This could not happen without state support and state sponsorship, and the United States must now do something it has been reluctant to do, and that is hold the states accountable that permit this kind of terrorism to take place.
What was your reaction to what we've just seen?
It's a clear act of war. I believe that Premier Tony Blair put it correctly. It's a time for action, not for just interviews. We know the names of these rogue countries. We know the names of the organizations. The intelligence community know to tell us where they are deployed, and it is a time for action, even if it's going to be a very tough and painful and maybe a struggle that will stretch over a few years.
Reports now of attacks, tracer fire in Kabul, and we will bring you any further details of that as we get them. Richard Pearl, actually, let me just bring you in on that point before we move on. Reports, as I say, of some attacks, explosions in Kabul. You any knowledge of what that might be?
No, I have no knowledge of it, but if it is retaliation against Osama bin Laden, it's long overdue and should be just the beginning of retribution against the state sponsors of terrorism.
Because it's thought that Osama bin Laden, who's been linked to this all through the day, is somewhere in Afghanistan and shielded by the Taliban regime there.
Indeed he is, but he works with other governments as well. And until we come to grips with government support for terrorism, we will be vulnerable to attacks even on this scale. This could not be done without governments that assisted in training pilots, in moving people, in moving resources, and providing intelligence.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pearl, and to all of you. We'll speak some more to you in a moment. I should say there are reports now of missiles being fired on or exploding in Kabul. We'll bring you any more on that as soon as we can. Now, the name of the Saudi-born terrorist Osama bin Laden, who we just mentioned, has been raised repeatedly today.
In Afghanistan tonight, reporting that the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul, is under missile attack. It's not clear yet. The Pentagon haven't confirmed whether indeed those are American missiles, but clearly this is the presumption of many people on the ground. And
that would start to look like a reprisal based on the speculation that we've seen about Mr. bin Laden.
Well, clearly it would show a firm conviction on the part of the American security establishment that he was responsible, and a first expression of their anger that for years the struggle they've had to try and get this man handed over by the Taliban regime has been unsuccessful, and if you like, a visitation of their anger on that government.
Let's turn to Frank Gaffney, who's in Washington, a security expert there. Mr. Gaffney, it seems strange that America has such conviction now that Mr. bin Laden was responsible, but had no